King and Kayla and the Case of the Downstairs Ghost is part of a chapter book series for young readers. King is a dog, and Kayla is his human. The books are written from the perspective of the dog, as he and his human solve mysteries. Hi, I'm Dan Skinner, and welcome to the Kids Bookshelf. Ahead, we'll explore the book and talk with the author and illustrator of the series. I requested and was provided with a copy of the book, but this video is not sponsored. Dori Hillestad Butler is the author of more than 60 books for children. Her series of books include King and Kayla, The Haunted Library, Dear Beast, and The Treasure Troop. Nancy Meyers is the illustrator of the King and Kayla and Language Together series. They join us to talk about another in the King and Kayla series. This time it's King and Kayla and the Case of the Downstairs Ghost. Dori and Nancy, welcome to the Kids Bookshelf.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Well, Dori, for those who aren't familiar with the King and Kayla series, tell us about it.
Sure. It's a chapter book series about a dog detective and his girl, and they work together to solve mysteries, and each one of them has a piece of the puzzle. But because one is canine and one is human, they can't just have a conversation like you and I are. So they have to find ways to communicate and get that mystery solved.
What was the original inspiration for this series?
Actually, this is a spin-off of a chapter book series I wrote, 13 years ago now, called The Buddy Files. And that was also about a dog detective, but that dog was a school therapy dog. And it was while I was training my own dog to be a therapy dog that I realized that a therapy dog comes in contact with lots of different people who might have different problems to solve, maybe even mysteries to solve. And so that's where that series began. And it's the same dog in King and Kayla. So this series takes you through that dog's life before the Buddy Files.
Now, this is a chapter book, so for what age group would you recommend the book?
King and Kayla, I would say probably 5 to 9. I know that parents of 3 and 4-year-olds are reading it with their children. Probably 4 to 9, maybe.
So what makes this book interesting? There are a lot of reasons why it's interesting, but one of them is that it's told from the perspective of King, the dog.
Yeah, told from a dog's point of view. I love writing from a dog's point of view. When I visit schools, I often tell kids that if I've had a particularly good writing session where I'm just in the flow and in that dog's head, I'll get up from my desk and I will be surprised how tall I am. I'll be surprised that I'm standing on 2 legs instead of 4 because that's how into that dog's experience I am. And I love that.
Nancy, tell us about how you became the illustrator for this series.
Well, Dori and I, I don't know that kids always know this, but we did not meet, and Dori didn't pick me. The editor and art director at Peachtree selected me, and I think they might have seen. I'm not quite sure which illustration samples they saw, but I did do a cookbook for dogs. Like a dog biscuit cookbook. So I had drawn a lot of dogs recently and I had them, on my portfolio. So maybe that's how I got the opportunity. So they contacted me and asked me to do some sample illustrations of different characters. Like I got character sketches of, who was involved, and I got to do the character sketches, and then Dori and the editor and art director looked over those to determine if I was a good fit.
Well, actually, they sent me a picture of a bunch of dogs that she had illustrated and said, "What do you think of her?" And I really liked all those dogs. Those dogs had so much personality. So I saw that before I ever saw your sketches of the characters.
Oh, okay. Were they wearing
They were wearing
hats by
hats,
any chance?
yes. Yes.
Yeah, they were at the Derby. I love drawing dogs. I've drawn them since I was a little kid. My sister and she would make up stories about dog families and all these different dog characters. And so when I got the opportunity to, present for this, I was like floored. So anyway, but yeah.
So, Dori, I'm wondering, how many books now have there been in the Kayla and King series?
This is number 10.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think the series remains popular with kids?
I think kids like books about dogs. I think kids like mysteries. So it's that combination, I think. And I like to think it's because they like to imagine the story from a dog's point of view.
Well, let's talk about this latest book. There's another mystery to be solved, and it involves a ghost in the basement.
So Kayla and King are going to a sleepover at Kayla's friend Jillian's house. And Jillian is convinced there's a ghost in her basement. And Kayla is very pragmatic. Kayla is very scientific. Let's be honest, Kayla doesn't believe in ghosts. But Kayla doesn't want to actually say that to her friend. So she's going to investigate. And together, King, Kayla, Jillian, and Jillian's dog Thor find out what's going on in the basement. I don't know if I should tell you whether there's really a ghost or not.
Yeah, don't want to get into spoilers, huh?
No.
So, Dori, before we talk more about this book, would you read a small portion of it to give people a taste of what they're going to find here?
I'm going to start from chapter 2, and this is told in first person. So the voice you're hearing is King, the dog's voice, and you will hear about Kayla, who is his human, and Thor, who is a little puppy that belongs to Kayla's friend Jillian. So they are all in this scene. So here it goes. After dinner, we creep downstairs. First Kayla, then me, then Jillian, then Thor. Do you feel that chill in the air? Jillian shivers. It's the ghost, Thor says. He's blowing on my back. That's my tail wagging, I tell Thor. It's always colder downstairs, Kayla says. Especially if there's a ghost down there, Jillian says. I don't see a ghost, Kayla says. Well, I've only seen it when the lights are off, Jillian says. Kayla takes Jillian's hand. Then let's turn off the lights, she says. Do you see it? Jillian asks. No, Kayla says. Jillian opens one eye. There, she points at a large, dark shape. Whoa, Kayla says. Then we hear a noise across the room. I'll stop there.
All right. Well, that's a good place to stop because, Nancy, there is a scene that you've put in the book right there with that shadow that's being cast. At that point, is foreshadowing, so to speak, the solution to this mystery.
Yeah. Dori does such a cool job of planting all these visual clues that I get to draw. And so there's some clues at the very beginning of the story that are subtle, and you have to be careful how you draw them so that they don't, they're not in your face, but they're definitely there. So that is just always very fun. But figuring out, like getting into Dori's brain, she spins a lot and she changes camera angles and she does all these different things. So you have to figure out the room, you have to figure out light sources, you have to figure out all these things so you can make it work, which is such a fun challenge as an illustrator. So I love that. So
since there have been a number of books, do you also, as the illustrator, have to make sure you maintain some consistency between the books And, keep that all straight in your head. So suddenly, if you're at Kayla's house, there's something that, shouldn't be there because it wasn't there in previous books or there's no explanation for it.
Totally. Because I think kids are way more observant than adults when it comes to that stuff. And I've done in sketch form, I've done like ridiculously goofy mistakes. Like suddenly there's a big tree in Jillian's backyard. And it's like, oh, that can't happen because in book 4, there was no tree or whatever. And there is a lot of checking back and making sure. And then you also want to make sure you don't paint yourself in a corner when you're doing like this book in particular was tricky because Jillian's backyard had been featured, but I needed her side yard had been featured in a previous story. And I needed to put her on a corner lot. And so I was like, oh, can I do that? Because so it's things like that that keep me hopping. So Dori's very good at challenging me that way. So yeah.
Dori, in every book, there's a challenge for King and Kayla. They've got a mystery that they need to figure out. And for kids, they get to go through that process where Kayla, writes down what she knows, she figures out all the facts, and ultimately they solve the mystery. So what's sort of the message here, or what do you hope that kids are taking away from seeing King and Kayla solve these mysteries?
Well, chapter 3 in every King and Kayla book kind of takes a break from the story to make lists of what we know and what we don't know. I think that's an important part of problem solving, and I think that's my takeaway for kids is whether it's a mystery or any problem you want to solve, take a break, slow down, think about what you know and what you don't know, and use that to help make a plan for what you're going to do next.
So a question for both of you. Obviously, you enjoy the work you do. What is it that you enjoy about creating books for kids?
I like writing from a dog's point of view a lot. I like seeing those sketches for the first time. Nancy says I put all these things in for her. Well, for me, it's always a treat to see her illustrations and see what she pulled out that I never would have even thought if I was going to tell her what to draw on every page, which I wouldn't. But if I was going to, she comes up with things that I wouldn't even think of. And that's what's really fun is to see that. Like in this book, for example, there's a page where King is imagining himself in a bathtub with a rubber ducky. I love that. It's little things like that in every book and seeing it for the first time. But I think my very favorite thing about writing for kids is actually getting to talk to kids about the books afterwards. They are so honest. They'll tell me what they love. They'll also tell me what they don't love, and I like that. I will often use that in future books. I'll take what I've gotten out of a conversation, and it might appear in a future book.
And Nancy, how about you?
Right when I started working on King and Kayla, I had my kids were kind of grown up, and I was feeling a void of small children in my brain. And so I took a position as a teaching assistant in a second grade classroom. And I was there for phonics and just reading help with kids. And I loved watching them kind of, especially when they're reading on their own, which is what this book is designed for. It's that market. Watching them, kind of challenge through that kind of decoding or whatever they're doing and trying to figure out what all these words mean. And then that pause where then they look at all the pictures. And I love that. I just would watch that. And I was like, they have to be entertained. This has to be fun. or not fun, but this has to pull at somewhere in their heart, because they deserve that. They deserve that entertainment, or that captured visualization, because they're working so hard to get through this book, and it's so fun to watch them, and it's so fun to watch them like kind of master those skills. So that is definitely what I think of. Well, plus the little characters are just totally in my brain, and I just love drawing them. It's like little people in my and dogs, and to be able to put them on paper and share those is I think I'm the luckiest person in the world to be able to get to do that. So.
Well, one of the things I notice is how much personality you're able to put into not only the human characters, but those dogs. And there's one scene that, which is not, won't be a spoiler for the book, but there's one scene where I think it's Kayla that tells King, don't pee on that new statue that's in the yard.
Yeah,
and there's
yeah,
that look on King's face that to me says, because he said, I wasn't going to do that, basically.
Yeah.
But the look on his face is like, well, yeah, he was, but he got called out on it first.
It's so fun because I'm so lucky that I'm not in a that my style doesn't limit me on expression, and I have to say, when you have animals, it's a lot easier to exaggerate the expression, because sometimes when you exaggerate it too much on human characters, it can look odd. So that's why this book series is so fun to illustrate, because especially Kayla, as Dori described her, she's very pragmatic. She's very level-headed and everything. So you need that Shakespearean foil, which is her dog, who is just like, he's just all the other side, And so to be able to do that with a dog character is very fun. And it also empowers Kayla's character, I believe. Yeah. So, but I've also heard from my family members and other people that when I'm drawing, I make the face of what I'm drawing, which I've heard other illustrators say that. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that I'm in a quiet office with a door. So anyway, but yeah.
This is another in a series of books featuring King and Kayla. And Dori, looking ahead, can you tell us a little bit about the next mystery that they'll be solving?
Yes, the next mystery is going to take place in a doggy daycare, and it is also going to be the jumping off point for another spin-off, a chapter book series. We are going to, so you're going to see the mystery in both books, in both the King and Kayla book and in the first book in the doggy daycare series. But you're going to see it from two different points of view. And so then when the doggy daycare series continues, those aren't going to be mysteries. Those are just different adventures that happen at this doggy daycare. And you're going to see all the dogs you've gotten to know in King and Kayla.
This book is another in the King and Kayla series. This time it's King and Kayla and the Case of the Downstairs Ghost. It's written by Dori Hillestad Butler and illustrated by Nancy Meyers. Dori and Nancy, thank you for talking with me today.
Well, thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Now, if you'd like to purchase King and Kayla and the Case of the Downstairs Ghost, I've placed a link for you in the description below. Well, thank you for watching this edition of the Kids Bookshelf. And if you'd like to see more videos about children's books and their authors and illustrators, be sure to like, subscribe, and click on the bell to be notified about future programs. And if you're looking for books for young adult and older readers, be sure to check out my Some Books Considered YouTube channel. I'm Dan Skinner. Until next time, keep sharing the gift of reading.